Hi everybody, my name is Bobby Richardson. Today I'm going to talk about my experience in becoming one with oneness, with source energy, with God itself. And the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because I feel like there's a few more messages coming from source energy, and I want to give you guys a background to how I can connect to source energy and why these messages are coming through me. So this topic is all about my journey, where I went and how I became one with source energy in the moment of the 29th of March 2020. And then I utilized that information that I received from that experience to start to learn to create my own reality. And that's what I'm really wanting to do, is to guide everybody into creating their own reality rather than looking for outside forces to create their reality for them. So I always say in most of my messages, we are source energy, God, going on a journey through these bodies, and that everything that is alive is source energy, God, whatever you want to call it, divine creator, going on a journey through this experience that we've created for ourselves. And the reason why that is because of this journey that I took. So it would have been 2 years prior to the journey where I asked my guides to lead me into experiencing oneness. And the first message they gave me was, you'll have to take something to do that. You'll have to take a substance, an outside substance to do that, because my logical brain had such a strong hold on this reality that it wasn't going to allow me to experience something so far out of the norm of what I could handle. So I didn't take anything up till then, no medicine, if you get what I mean. Up till then, I wasn't someone who'd do that. I used to have a lot of visions. My mum had the same. It was just a natural given gift. I saw a lot of beings coming and visiting me and so forth, giving me their messages and waking me up and helping me through the maze of the matrix, so to speak, or the program. And then, so I knew that I had to take this medicine, but I didn't really want to, because I had a bit of fear around it as well. So it was 2 years later that I was in this situation, and it was right at the beginning of 2020 when it happened. I'd already been given the date via a contact that I'd had from higher benevolent beings from Pleiadians of the 28th, 29th, that I will be joining them. I didn't understand that at the time, but then it all made sense after the fact. When I wrote down the date, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've seen those numbers before in a dream. And I looked it up and it was 28th, 29th. It didn't say of the 3rd, just 28th, 29th, because it was the night of the 28th and it went through to the morning. If anyone knows, after taking some certain medicines, we can have these experiences that last quite a few hours. So I'm going to bring in Codes to a New Reality, Meeting God Oneness video that I created. So we can have a small look at that, and then I will talk about what that is all about afterwards. At the very beginning of that night, before this, well, it was kind of like the start of the journey, so to speak. The first thing that happened that isn't in the video is that I put my hands in the earth and I could literally feel her heartbeat. And then I saw myself coming into the center of Gaia herself as a tube of light. And there was all these other tubes of light like meeting at the guts or the source of Gaia herself, of Mother Earth herself. And she was almost deciding herself who would come and who wouldn't. And she wanted, she said, I would represent humanity, because this is my reality, right? This is a story that I'm creating. So I'm at that point coming from my own viewpoint as being creator of my reality. So I was in that moment, from my own perspective, representing humanity's consciousness. And then I went from there to realizing that she was giving birth to a new energy that's allowing humanity's consciousness to come to rise into different frequencies that were already present with her. So I saw all these different tubes of light representing plants, animals, everything. Yeah, so it was to do with I was given the message by Mother Earth in that moment that she was allowing humanity to come, but we had to do the work. We had to clear ourselves enough to be able to come, or raise our vibration enough to be able to get into be allowed into that frequency. And I'd had experiences when I did a vision quest over in Ohio, where I had a similar message, where majority of people were warring within their own self and their own psyche and their own minds, and that was reflected outwards. And so it was all to do with gaining retrospective, not warring between logic and intuition anymore, and allowing ourselves to become whole, or centered, or still, or presently in the moment, to be able to access the pineal gland, which had the DMT in it, to be able to go through into these other dimensions. So that's virtually with this help of the substance what was happening with me. I was literally being called to go into that. But to do that, I had to peel back a whole heap of layers of myself.
My journey started after I cleared as much of my self-perpetuating cycle, that of lack of support from the masculine energy here on earth and the victimization of myself. This left me with the knowledge that this is mainly stemming from distrust of the masculine energy here on earth, being that I was born female back in 1967, which was a time when a feminine side was just starting to rise. Also, I came in knowing I had to help, but I felt I couldn't because I was never taken seriously enough. So in return, I didn't support myself due to wanting to fit in, as all babies know they need to learn from their parents the game rules of living in this practical playing ground we call Earth. So I never supported the powerful female I knew I was, giving it up to the energy already present, that of a dominating masculine energy. So this night, the night of the 28th of March in 2020, my healing started when I let go and forgave myself for allowing the energy of Earth in 1967 to dictate who I was.
I had to peel back all these layers of myself that weren't conducive to the fact that I was source energy, or God, going on a journey. And what are those layers? That all the doubt, all the self-sabotaging thoughts, all of the feelings within myself that made me feel small, and that I wasn't big enough or good enough or certain, it just wasn't enough to become what I already was. And recognize that I already was source energy going on a journey. So to peel back those layers, I had to go through a journey of like seeing where I wasn't supporting myself. And in reflection, I would have the people in my life were reflecting that, where I wasn't supporting myself. And so on this journey, I ended up going around in a loop, a logical self-sabotaging loop over and over again, where I was searching for someone outside of myself to support me, and then they weren't there for me, and then I would get down on them and I'd get angry, and then I'd go back into earth herself and put my hands in the earth and realize that I'm the one that has to support myself. And then I would get up again and feel terrible because I was feeling sick at the same time, and then I'd be searching outside myself for support, and then they weren't there, and then I'd realize that I had to come back to myself again, go back to earth and put my hands in the earth. And I just kept doing this over and over and over and over again. And this is literally what humanity was caught in the loop of, looking outside themselves for help that wasn't ever going to be present or ever be able to fulfill the person's obligations, because they hadn't learned to support themselves and who they were, and take back the fact that we are whole people, we are whole souls, we are whole on this journey already. We didn't have to go searching for anything outside of how we felt about ourselves. So this went on for quite a few hours until I got to the point where I just went, stop, something's wrong, something's really wrong. I started to see the look. I started to see from an observer point of view the pattern that was reoccurring over and over and over again. And then you could see it in my life over and over and over again. So then I'm like, how am I going to get myself out of this when I'm constantly realizing that I have to support myself, but I cannot support myself by looking outside myself for that help? So I went, okay, what do I really truly want to do? And then I decided to go to sleep, go back to my bed and just go to sleep and forget about everything. That's what I wanted to do. And I wasn't looking to be an entertainer for the people that are around me or try to fit into societal norm. I just wanted to go back and be a hermit and find me. So I went to bed and I just kept coming back to support me, support myself. I've got to do whatever I feels right, what feels right for me in this moment. And it was chaotic because my mind was all over the show. And then it got to a point where I just finally breathed, and I was just simply happy with just being and just breathing and really focusing on bringing myself to the moment and not trying to have an expectation in my head of what was to come or what my partner at the time needed or anything like that. I was just breathing, and I brought myself to the moment enough to start to feel like I was okay, and that everyone outside of me was me as well, was my reflection. So my partner was my reflection. If he wasn't there for me, it's because I wasn't there for me. And so then I went back to that, and I kept looping back to that. And then then he actually came up and started hugging me for the first time that night. And then I realized, see, as soon as I started loving who I am and respecting him as part of me, then I started to receive the attention that I was desiring, because I'd already given it to myself. Like I gave myself a virtual hug, and then he just reflected that. And then I realized I was him. And when you realize that you are them, it takes you on this journey of self-discovery, of realizing that you are also everyone else that you have in your thoughts, your family, your friends, your neighbor, the house, the neighborhood, anyone that you can imagine, you become. But the only way to handle this, when I flipped into that reality, was I started hearing all these voices, and I saw that I was in everyone. It was to become the observer, otherwise it becomes too muddlesome of all the voices. So I had to keep on becoming an observer of. And when you become the observer of your reality and the people in your head that are representing by people outside of yourself, you recognize that it is all to do with how you feel about them as to how they're going to act towards you. And so I kept doing this until I became so I could feel and hear all these voices coming at me of, say, the neighborhood that I knew about. And then I became the country and how I felt about that. And then I became Earth and how I felt about her and humanity's whole consciousness. And then I realized, so I kept becoming the observer of, and then I became the solar system, how I felt about that, the planets around and the stars, how I felt the universe, how I felt about that. And I started to keep on bringing myself into the reality of becoming more and more and more and more. And I until the point where I just became the whole story. And it was like shown to me as a tourist going on a journey. We were actually, as Gaia, Earth herself, I saw Earth coming into the vortex of the central point of the story, and at the center was just light itself, just God, just love, just going on a journey. And then it kind of splits itself up into all these fractions of all these different people that are in my reality, because it's my reality, right? And that's all I know about. And then it goes back into becoming source energy, just love, self again. So in the 29th of March 2020, Gaia was just entering this vortex, which is like a slipstream. It's like a quickening of us moving past a program that had done its job, or a understanding or a lesson that humanity's consciousness had gone on, which was the logical lesson. And we'd already previously, years gone by, through Atlantis, Lemuria, gone on the right brain, the intuitive journey, and the understanding that we are source energy. Then that had to disappear, and that's when, in my reality, I know in the history of humanity's consciousness that I am, was when the witches were persecuted, and the religions came in, and all the logic started to become an uprising, which meant that we were only going to be looking outside ourselves for everything, and that pulled us into a lockdown so that we couldn't become one with other dimensional spaces, because it wasn't within our 5 senses of what logic could handle. And then leaders would be appointed outside of ourselves because we weren't trusting who we were, and so forth. And then all those that still held on to the feminine understanding of that we are connected to everything, they started to become persecuted and murdered and so forth, and so they were born into a fear of death.
From this point, thinking outside the box is the only way to understand what happened to me next, as I started to see, feel, and experience many human lives. There were so many that I had to shift my point of view to becoming the observer, and I saw the many facets and ripples of human consciousness creating a torus-like pattern feeding itself. As we entered the center, we were nearing the middle of all-knowing. Entering through the core of Creator, I felt like we as an earth consciousness were moving towards the point of Source or God. I knew I was this Creator, this oneness, this God, and it was within me. This just was and felt all-knowing, and clear of any illusions that I, Creator, had created. There was a stillness within that all was meant to be as it should be. I then saw a hidden part of myself in the split of duality, where the God or Source I am decided to experience itself. As the question from Source, the Source I am, or the God I am, created the ability to experience itself, because one on its own could not experience unless it has another to reflect of, and thus duality was born, and the unknown part of ourself that we either decide to trust or not to trust. But within this hidden part of myself, in man or male energy, being that I am female, I realize we all come from Creator, love, Source, or God. This is like a splitting of the cell into two, and each cell forgot that the other cell was themselves, so they could experience different perspectives of the same thing. After this, I was back in the torus or donut shaped, like a tree feeding itself of many, many lives, and I knew I was getting closer to Source. The feeling was amazing. It was a feeling of being all there was. It was an acceptance that all was creation. Many images of lives washed through me. If I could put it in a way we humans could understand, it was like looking into a power shell. The point of God was at the center of the swirl on the shell, and all the lives were the ripples rippling out of the center. But all was Source, just as all was the shell, and every single life experience was God. I was then left with the feeling of absolute joy in seeing what I or Source or God had created, that together we had experienced everything and with no judgment on anything. I felt like a child seeing all with wonder and acceptance. This was a beautiful feeling one would have to experience, as words cannot convey the harmony within. I then knew all would be dismantled on earth as we passed the point of Source, leaving the core natural laws in place to start again. This is like the feeling of finishing a puzzle and breaking it up to start again. I knew this is what humanity on earth is going through now. I was so proud of what was achieved, so exhilarated at this amazing creation of self.
So then I got to the point of Source energy itself and love itself, and I went, wow, this is incredible. When I got to that point of just love, it was me, and I was it, all at the same time. I became one with all because I was the only creator of my reality and my existence in the moment, in each moment that I was living. And so everything was reflected on how I felt about my reality, which made it become this reality that I exist in. And it's like I saw everybody, because the next morning I woke up and I was still in this feeling, I could see everybody as their own God self, their own point of existence, and how they created their reality, and what they decided was the truth for this physical world, and what they decided not was. It's only when there was a collaborative energy that everybody decided this is the truth of our reality that we ended up becoming that truth. And if we're all constantly victims looking outside ourselves for help, then it gave perpetrators the access to telling you, the victim, how to live their reality. So they constantly wanted you in a lower frequency, a fear-based frequency, so that they could feel grander than life, because they never felt grand within themselves. They were searching outside themselves for someone to be the victim. So this is where I went on my journey. And the reason why they wanted to bring that up is because whenever I do find myself tapping into Source energy, I become the central point of all. And then I get the messages received. So that's where those messages are coming from. And I believe that too, when I went on that journey, I was showing that journey of what myself went through, because that is what the whole of humanity is going through in these last couple of years. We're finally starting to peel back our own layers of self-sabotaging, of where we were lacking, of where we're giving our power away, of how we didn't use our imagination to carve a new path for ourselves, but we've been giving our imagination off to a program of somebody else's reality that's coming from their lack. So this is what this whole shift is about. It starts with you and how you perceive your life and what your reality is creating. So there are still people in this world that are completely closed down to all of this, and that is their reality. And so they've given their reality off to another person to take charge. And so they listen to the programs that are placed in front of them. Now, you have to believe this program now, you have to believe this one. But the more we focus in on believing that program, the more it becomes bigger than Ben-Hur. If we just turned around and said, no, I don't like that program, I'm not going to focus in on it, I'm going to focus in on creating a whole new game over here, then you start to open up your door, your place in the world of what you're creating. And I think it's really valid for everyone to have an understanding of this if they want to move out of the matrix, so to speak, the old program, self-sabotaging, fear-based, lack of, not supporting self-program, and into understanding that they are source energy in this body going on a journey just like everyone else. So we're all just as powerful and just as ordinary and just as magnificent as everyone else. And we're all wanting to create the journeys that we want to go on. And then those people come in and are magnetized to what your journey is all about. So you start magnetizing people that are more conducive to your journey rather than magnetizing people that are opposing your journey because you haven't supported yourself in the journey that you want to take fully. And I'm talking logically as well as intuitively. So your logic has to have at least some understanding of this. So that it can be free enough to allow your imagination to at least play out, and then logic can literally grab that imagination and say, yes, I can ground that into this reality, let's do this. For an example, something that's right outside the box, say telepathy. When I was given telepathic communication, I wanted to know more about it, and I started asking the questions, and then all of a sudden I meet a Cherokee elder who holds my hand and talks to me telepathically for over an hour, and gave me absolute confirmation that that was happening. And so my reality expands then outside of this proverbial closed off box of what everybody else is saying, and my reality becomes more than that I feel good about. But it is all to do with what you're feeling good about. You have to always come back to what appeases you and your logical mind to bring and ground into this reality. Any questions that you have, please feel free to put them in the comments, and I'll see what I can do with answering those questions. If it's a personal question or anything, then go on my website, www.codes2anew-reality, and I do one-on-one readings for people, connecting to their soul and helping them gain new perspective into creating the life that they want, where their blockages are. And also I have classes coming up. So every 2 weeks we do a class. It's only $20 if you want to join them with a class. And that is also on my website, so you can book for that now. The next one is on the 20th of February, 2023. So until next time, love you guys. Bye.